Josiah, at the last minute, gets called to say, hey, by the way, you're doing a baptism today. And so here he is, jumps in. So helps usher a new young life into the family of Christ amongst us, and just very grateful for your presence. And we want you to share a little bit about your own vocation story.
Needless to say, I'm very humbled to be here this evening for many reasons. Certainly just to have the opportunity to talk to you. But also just an incredible amount just being humbled by the words to know that He's invited me to this life. He invited me on this adventure of Priesthood, and just the gifts and how much He has richly blessed me. And that's really the story I'd like to share with you this evening of how the Lord has brought me to be here for Surgite. So as I mentioned already, I grew up the youngest of 5 kids with 2 lovely parents, Brett and Shauna Hanson, and I'm so grateful in a particular way. For those of you who might not know much about them, but actually both of them are converts to the faith. And so it was very, very important for the 2 of them to get the gift of the 5 of us, myself and my 4 siblings, the gift of growing up Catholic that neither of them got to have. And so from a young age, just being involved in the church, coming to Sunday Mass, being involved with youth groups, but also most importantly, having the opportunity of having preaching over to our house. And I remember as a small child, sitting at a table with pastors and broker liquors from Rapid City and New Underwood and Wall and all around. Seeing these men whom I wouldn't only have ever seen at Mass, this gathered up in the sacristy, but all of a sudden I knew them as men who loved the church, who loved the Lord, but also loved His people, and loved me. And that was really what started planting seeds in my own heart, to ask the question, maybe is that what the head's going to be? And I had to go into so much of that with my parents, making those invitations and making their priority the faith that they today. And also just really cultivating my own heart and the lives of my siblings, just to intentionally ask that question. Our vocation is not presumed, and it's a question that we have to ask as a Lord. And so growing up in a Catholic family, I had that seed planted very young, but it really didn't blossom or even roots for many years of my life. And really the first kind of watering that happened was always like middle school, attending the Tourist Vocation camp that I around the diocese for large month back in. So week-long events that hosted at the songs of time of fraternity and prayer with the young priests in the seminary of the diocese. I remember as a 12-year-old boy walking into this new place, one of the first times I'd spent a whole week away from my parents, and encountering these young men who had a love for paint that I simply couldn't explain, and I couldn't understand, but I knew that I desperately wanted. And this invitation of learning how to pray, the liturgy hours, spend time in prayer in the Eucharist, to go and get your labs. And I saw their joy that they were seeing this time. And I started asking the question, what makes them so much different and so much happier than others? And that question weighed very heavy on my heart for a lot of years, despite trying to push forward into something profoundly for a couple of years in particular. And it really wasn't until a young parochial vicar, newly ordained Father Jonathan Dillon, was assigned here at the cathedral and took a particular interest in the youth and adults here at this parish, and in particular to an interest in deed. I remember coming back to him after a summer event with the high schoolers, and just coming to him and saying, I really want to grow in my faith, but I don't know what to do. And he looked at me and he said, well, you need to do 2 things. You need to be close to the sacraments, your Mass as often as you can, confession as often as you can. Secondly, you have to have a life that's related like prayer. So there's all kinds of things that you can do for that. And one thing that I want you to commit to, so I want you to commit to an hour of adoration, adoration chapel we have in this church. So I committed to seeing here on Friday nights for 11 night. It's a great incredible. And I'll be honest, showing up for those first couple of weeks, we really had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing as I was sitting with our Lord. But eventually I started to learn through the help of good priests and good seminaries in my life how to learn how to pray, how to offer the Lord my thoughts, my feelings, my desires. And when it came around to the near the end of my time in high school, we're going to that holy hour, giving the Lord all of these great plans that I had for my life. I was going to go to this college and study this degree, and then go off to this city to get a job where I'd be able to have a good Catholic family. And I just thought it was a great plan, and I was excited to tell the Lord all about it. I was confounded when kneeling in that Adoration Chapel, I heard the Lord very quietly but very clearly say to me that, Josiah, this is good. It's not what I have written. And it took me a lot of weeks going back to that chapel, continuing to offer, Lord, look at this rich thing when I hand. These good things that I have figured out that I think are a great idea. But just continuing to say, Josiah, this is good. It's not what I have planned. And it took me a lot of time, many weeks, for me to really stick in and trust the Lord to say that this other thing was an invitation to seminary. This other thing was an invitation to that joyous life that I experienced through seminary as a young priest, and so experienced all of those years before. Is that same freedom that I experienced from these priests who came to our house for years. So I reached out to our vocation director, Mark McCormick. I'm sure it probably hasn't gotten me an hour during my high school stuff. But praise God, His mercy, for working with me, and I was really hoping after I told him this whole saga that he would say, that sounds like a great plan, Josiah. Go to your married, give you a degree, and we'll talk in 4 years. He just said. And praise God for that. As he began to walk with me during my senior year of high school, I made the decision to begin applying to seminary. So I graduated high school from St. Thomas School right across the street, 2019. In that fall, I entered the seminary at Wyoming, Minnesota, and I got there. So in 4 years there, studying philosophy, far more importantly, 4 years later, I learning how to pray, developing a really robust new relationship with the Lord, and acquiring some of the best friendships and some of the best brothers I've ever had in my life. And imagine were able to help me give the freedom to say yes to this better thing that the Lord had invited me to in that Adoration Chapel. And it was that freedom that I experienced of being able to attend the seminary for those 4 years of Winona, and now for the last 3 years in St. Paul, Minnesota, studying theology. To be able to have the freedom to be able to go and to discern with no strings attached. To know I can show up to my time of prayer every day, ask you, Lord, I've come here because you've invited me. I ask you every day, is it still where you desire to be? And know that the only thing that matters is its response. I don't have to worry about any flurry of things that come along with college life and tuition and what am I doing over my summers, or where am I going to be for this semester, what am I going to be doing next? All those things were kind of taken care of as diocese. And I'm so thankful because it was really in that structure that I was given the freedom to be able to say yes, and ultimately say yes to what the Lord is inviting me to in a particular way this spring, in ordination. And I could not be more thankful for the gifts that I've received, certainly on that day of ordination, but maybe more importantly, how the Lord has continued to pour into that gift of ordination every day for the last two months. 9 weeks, I think, around God. As I've been able to have that gift of being able to be here at the cathedral, to have a people that I can serve, people that the Lord has given to me, people that I am able to put myself out to, and I can offer my prayer for it in a very particular way. I know that all those things have been given to me, certainly by the Lord, but also in a very particular way by this diocese. And that's really the invitation that we have for you tonight. God is to enter into that great mission, this great work of this diocese, to not just for my vocation, and not just for my work here at the cathedral, but to enter into the greater work of this church, continue the fruitful formation of priests and seminary for diocese for the next year, the next 5 years, the next decade, the next session. People of God will always be here. We always need more men to be able to serve this well. I'm so thankful that I've gotten to enter in the smallest of great ways into this diocese. And I'm so thankful that you too, this opportunity here tonight, already said yes to being part of that position. So thank you, certainly to all of you. Thank you to the bishop for giving this opportunity of being our diocese, and most of all, very thanks to God. Because he certainly is not a mother, but also raised that he's present in this week on this church and this diocese. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you. I know that the next piece is coming.